Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started on the data on the summary page. In the next slide, let me show us the objectives that we have for the session. First of all, is to understand what is the reason for the dashboard. Secondly, to understand exactly where the data that's on the dashboard is coming from. And, just to get clear on some basic navigation and what exactly the data we're looking at means. With that out of the way, I think this picture is a nice summary of everything I'm going to talk about today. We have SASEMS, which is a very decent system for us to record our school activities and records. But as you can see from this slide here, just permit me to zoom a little bit closer to it. As you can see from this slide, yes, you can definitely do an analysis there, but there will be a lot of heavy lifting on your part, very complex, very deep, or it can be very complex and very deep. And the idea of the dashboard is to take that for some of us who are not working with SASMs on a regular basis, but still allows us to be able to interpret and to gain insights from the data that's on the dashboard. Permit me now to zoom into the picture on the right. And, this is an overview of the dashboard. You can see here at the top, it's letting us know where we are. Then there is some pages. Then at the bottom of that, there is some pie charts that are summarizing quite a lot of the key information there. And as you can see, if you're in a circuit level, you're able to see all your circuits and how they're performing and very quickly get to the bottom of underperforming circuits and lend your support. And just 5 seconds, just like that, those are the questions that we've answered just by throwing our eyes on that page. But we will be going into a deeper explanation about what every aspect of the dashboard in the summary page means. A natural question that can come up is, okay, that's great, the data is up there, but where is this data coming from? And is this data reliable? Well, the data is coming from SASMs, as I've said, and as we can see here on SASMs, it doesn't take all of the information on SASMs, only interested in those information that speak about the school detail, the learner and the learner and educator detail, and of course, curriculum. So those are the data that it will be interested in. And during the submission process, which is done in 2 phases, either weekly or at the end of the term, both of which go through a process called valistraction. Goes through the valistractor, which allows this data to be validated and extracted. And by extracted, all I mean is that it's taken from the school laptop and it's put on the dashboard where we can make those interpretations that I spoke of. One thing we want to be aware of the valistractor is that it allows us to check for completeness. The best way for me to explain completeness is if you went to the doctor today and the clerk at the front asks you for your information, they give you a clipboard, you fill your information in, and you give it back to them, and then they realize, okay, there's some blanks. For example, you didn't give them the medical aid number. They will give it back to you, and it is for you to correct the medical aid number. So that's how the valistractor works. It's able to allow us to check to make sure that all the fields that are required have been in fact filled in. Fortunately, valistractor is unable to check for data integrity. So if something is changed or something is mistyped, if a learner had 50% average and we put it as 20% average on SASMs, valistractor has no way of knowing this. Hence, it's very important that all of us be aware of the process and be aware of how we are submitting our data to the dashboard. It's very much dependent on the SMT having processes that validate the information coming into SASMs and also make printouts of what's being typed or what's been inputted, and to compare those to what we originally had using process like sample size, selection, process like moderation to ensure that what we have typed is in fact correct. If those systems are correct and in place at the school, it means the data on the dashboard can be reliable and we can use it to in fact draw insights. There's a small part we've put here around third-party administration systems. And the request there is that third-party schools are encouraged to export the data to SASMs before uploading. And because this is a national webinar, the situation might be different in each province. I know, for example, in Northwest, all third-party schools, for example, are required to use SASMs. And in Gauteng, we've been having a resurgence at the moment, particularly with the Curio schools. They are in the process of moving their data to SASAMs. So yeah, so unfortunately, third-party administration systems can only be supported if they can export their files to Value Structure. And then from then on, that will make it to the dashboard, allowing us to very easily do some analysis. In this slide, I could actually spend an entire webinar on this slide. In fact, we already have. If you can visit our YouTube page and look for DDD Dashboard views, you'll be able to find a topic that we have done that speak about the different information in the views. But in this session, I will also be able to cover here and there what the views mean. But the idea here is that the data remains, the data that's being profiled is always the same, more or less on the dashboard, but you're able to change and go to a higher aggregated view. For example, if there's a learner information there, that learner information becomes aggregated in the grade, and you can have a grade view. And after that grade is aggregated, then we're looking at it from a school view. And when the school's views are aggregated, then it means we're in the circuit view, so on and so forth, until you're seeing the summary of all the information from a national view. So what I want you to take away here is that the dashboard has levels. A lot of us who are here are probably landing at the school level, but we're able to drill deeper into the educator view, learner view, even down to the subject view. So that's what I want you to take away from here, is that you're able to drill ever deeper on the dashboard, but the metrics or what is being measured will always be the same, but at a higher or at a lower level. That's all I'll say about this slide. If you're very interested in more about views and what different views look like, depending on where you are, like I said, on our YouTube page, we have that DDD dashboard view. I encourage that you go see it. With that foundation work out of the way, we can now have a even clearer discussion now about the subject of the day, which is the summary page. And by summary page, we mean summary tab if you are computer versed, if you're a little bit more versed in computer language. But as you can see here, the dashboard literally has only 4 tabs or 4 pages, and one of which is the summary. And this is where the key depth of the information will probably be found. Now, what I do want to mention is that if you can understand the summary page, you will also be able to understand the term to date page. The summary page and the term to date page are the very same thing. The only difference is that the term to date will give us information for the current term that we're in. So that means the best we'll be able to see there is attendance of educators and learners and the coverage of the tasks. That's about all we'll be able to see on term to date. However, in the summary, we'll be looking at the previous term's final data. So the promotion, the performance, the achievement, etc., from the previous term will be available, allowing us to give it a look for insights and for analysis. And what we'll be able to see is educator and learner data, particularly the attendance, subject analysis, some assessments there. And I think I want to be careful by saying assessments because it's more task completion. It's more saying the tasks that have been given, do we have a mark for them? It's very possible that the mark exists, but it hasn't been captured. That's quite a possibility. So I wouldn't want to draw a fast conclusion to say that a task that's not there is speaking to an assessment that's there. It simply means we need to ask the question. We need more information. Okay. However, it can very much, it can possibly indicate the fact that perhaps the task hasn't been done. And also there's tracking, as I've said, task completion, educator and learner absenteeism, and of course promoted, which is going to be an important theme during COVID-19. Those learners who are promoted, what sort of promotion did we have for them? Were they progressed? And at this point, the progressed learners are in different, my understanding is that they're in different categories, especially around COVID-19 adjustments. There's some adjustments that could be done. Learners can be condoned. However, all of them will be represented as progressed, simply meaning that they did not meet the minimum requirement for one reason or the other. However, they are finding themselves in the next level. So that's going to be key. And so that promotion data, it's very important that we be able to give it a good look. To be honest, very also important to look at the attendance data. All of the data here can be key, but I think in the season that we're in, we want to keep our pulse on the promotion and the attendance. And here in this page, this is the summary of all the pie charts or the metrics that you can find here. Of course, you've got the first two, the learner and educator attendances. And what you want to take away here and what you want to notice is the color coding. Notice how the learner attendance in my example is on the red. This simply means it's below a certain target, or sometimes we'll say it's below a certain threshold, and is now represented as red because the dashboard is saying this is below what we want to see, right? So we can see here, for example, 90%, it's below the target. And by the way, one good trick that I want us to actually take away from using the dashboard is the fact that, the dashboard has other information that can pop up. And to activate some of the pop-ups in the information, if I simply hover my mouse, for example, on this pie chart, it would give me further information. And based on where I hover, that will determine the further information I have. So a nice trick for those of us who are starting on the dashboard, just to get into the habit of just placing our mouse on the metrics, even on some of the numbers, to see what is on the other side, what possible breakdown or pop-up could be there. Of course, learner and educator attendance there is talking to the number of times, the percentage of times learners were present. But we also have statistics that flip it around and say the number of times learners were absent as well. That's also available. There's a percentage expected tasks, as I've covered in the previous slide. And as we can see from here, it's at 98%. Of course, this is a cause for concern if the term has been completed. The assumption there is that if the term is completed, all the tasks have been completed. So we don't want to see 98%. We want to investigate, was the task actually completed or was it not captured? Either way, it's something that we want to give a look at if we're an SMT or even upper management, circuit management, and what have you. Then we've got the promotion pie chart or metric. And the one that I've highlighted here is for grade R and grade 11. But sometimes if your school does have metric, there will be another one very similar to it. Maybe it will be a different color that only speaks to the promotion statistics of metrics. As we know, FET has different terminologies for the level of passes that we're seeing there. So for metric, that can be present. And that will represent the only information that we don't source directly from SASMs. That information we get directly from the NSC. So sometimes it might be a little bit late, but either way, whether it's the final promotion or the metric promotion, they both speak to the promotion statistics. How many learners actually graduated from their current level, and what sort of graduation did they have? Were they progressed? Did they pass? Or maybe they didn't pass. All of that will be represented by this pie chart. And of course, the final one, which speaks to the learner pass rate or the number of learners or the rate at which learners are passing in the school, in my example, 89%. And that then speaks to the learner achievement. Now, before I move away from this page, I do want to get a little bit ahead of myself and say, as I've been saying, these are aggregates, or in other words, these are summaries. All of these pie charts are representing summaries of, say, example, the learner attendance. If you click on the pie chart with the learner attendance, it will actually scroll you to the part of the page that actually breaks down those summaries. So for example, for learner attendance, if I click on it, it will take me to a place where I can see the grades from grade R to whatever highest grade that I have. And from there, I'll be able to see for each grade, how was their attendance and how did each grade contribute to this aggregate. So that will be that for the learner attendance, but then we also have things like learner pass rate. Learner pass rate, if I click that one, it will tell me again which grades had what kind of learners passing, or how many kinds, or how many rate of learners passing. But it will also tell me the subjects. There will be another sub-tab there that will allow me to look at, okay, of this learners that passed, which subjects were actually either passed or failed? What were the achievements for some of the subjects in the learner? So what I want you to take away from that discussion is that if I click the pie chart, it will take me to the part of the page that will break down the rest of the story. Now, in this session, I am going to focus on the school level, because everyone, regardless whether you're at provincial level, at some point, you will have to have a school in focus. And if you, like I said, go to YouTube and go to the YouTube views, you'll actually be able to see how other levels are able to see the view. But from the school view, as soon as you pass the pie charts that I've spoken about, the next page that you will see will be this page here that are showing the educators and the learners of the school that we are in. And again, it's a tab or a page. You can either click on educators and see the educator information, or you can click on the learners and see the learner information. So let me just go back to the educator information here. Another nice feature here on the dashboard that I want you to be aware of. As you can see here, this is a list of my educators in the school. It's 25 of them. The first educator there is 2262 John. And right there at the end, I can see there's his attendance, and it's marked as red again because it's below an expected threshold. And I just want to stop here and say, when it comes to attendance, no problem with educators being absent. The only thing we want to ask ourselves is, what were the number of the periods that were lost as a result of that absenteeism, and how has that impacted our curriculum coverage? That's all that we are interested in, to say how many periods were lost, and how do we make sure that we don't make that absenteeism negatively affect our learners. That's all we are interested in. So as a result, you can see there 82%. Let's just say I wanted to see which educator had the least attendance, and thereby which subject that they are primary assigned to actually found itself with the least teaching time. So in other words, I want to see the educator with the least teaching time at the top. That's something I can do. If I click on attendance here, you will see it will have a arrow that's facing up. That's basically telling me that we have now rearranged this list according to the lowest amount in the description that you've clicked. You can even do it vice versa, and then there's an arrow pointing down where the highest will be at the top. But then again, I can imagine this is something that is better shown than said. It's something better done than said. So when I do my demonstration, just watch out for that one if my explanation is not 100% clear. But upon identifying which educator had the lowest attendance, we can click on that educator, and then now we are now in the educator page. And as you can see in the educator page, there is 4 divisions. There's a qualification, the specialization, and the subject teaching. Let's just take it through very, very quickly. So the first is the educator's qualification, an important question if we want to support this educator. Maybe this educator was trained in Xhosa, but now they find themselves doing mathematics. Are they properly trained to do mathematics? And that can be some way we can support them if in fact we want them now to do mathematics, so that we continue to give quality education in that context. Then there's social sciences. This is another subject that they're responsible for, for grade 7. And then we can see their training years and their teaching years in this particular subject. All of this gives us some evidence on the kind of support that will be appropriate for this educator. Then we also have, the subject teaching, how the learners in this educator's class are performing. As you can see, they've got some grade 7s that are performing at 93% for the exam and the test pass rate, and are performing at 94% for the report mark pass rate. And as far as the exam test pass rate, I will explain that at a later slide. But think of it, if I were to simplify it and put it in the easiest way possible, is to say that external assessment, how did they perform? That will be represented in the exam test. And then the combined, the SBA, how did they perform? That's what we'll see in the report mark. But that's a simple answer that I'll break down when we get to the part that speaks about that. And of course, in the final page, we'll be able to see which of the days this educator was absent. And of course, allowing principals to have a supportive discussion if absenteeism is a concern there. So moving on to the learner page, as I've said, we've got our educator page that we've just looked at. Now we have the learner page, slightly different, but it also has the same mechanism that if I click on report mark, the learner with the least mark in the school will appear here. You might be asking yourself, am I able to do this for the grade? And the simple answer is yes, and I'll show you how we can get to the grade and do that. You can see here, 16975 John, age 7, grade 1. And by the way, let me stop here by saying I have codes that are tying themselves to, I believe it's no, let me not mistake. Let me just say that there's a coding system here for us to identify boys and girls, and I'm unable to see the names of the learners because I have a South Africa view. It's not POPI compliant for me to be able to see all the names of all the learners in the school. So, however, if you are in the school level, you will see the name of the learner here, Yankee Litea, for example, and you'll be able to know where that it will be an actual name of an actual learner in your school. So I just want to say that part. It's just anonymized for me because I don't have those rights. And if you are in a circuit level and you also want these rights, or in a district level and you want these rights, I will also plug us to how we can attain those rights. It should be a very simple process. But the data that's here, the learner's name, their age, their grade, we can see this learner has been absent 0 days. Their performance is at 5%, and that line there is the line that they should be in if they are going to pass. However, they are on track in terms of the age, but if we're not careful, this learner who was progressed in this case last year was 2017 for this report, we might finding them being progressed again, and we start losing them being on track, and they become chronically progressed. So we can actually now, let's just say we're interested in, thinking up of an intervention for this learner and learners like them. We can click on this learner and it will take me to the learner's information page. The way in the previous tab I was able to go to the educator's information, I am now able to look at the learner's information. The first part there, as you can see there from the reading, this section displays how the learner performed and compares the learner's performance with the class average. Allow me to attempt to zoom to that information so we can give it a closer look. And so here it is. So that's the first thing we're going to see. This is the learners' subjects that they're performing, the educators of this learners. It's not showing up because possibly these educators are not properly linked or in that grade for that educator. For that grade, for that subject, it doesn't seem to be an educator that's linked, possibly because of an SSM's issue, or maybe even because maybe there's no educator, in fact, that's taking care of this. Unfortunately, those are some of the things we've seen. But we can see here this learner, for most of their subject, pardon me, I have zoomed myself out. For all of the subjects, very quickly, I can see when it comes to an external paper, this learner is not doing too well. But however, for Setswana, they're doing very well. I mean, if I compare this learner to the exam test to the average of the class that they're in, they're fairly behind in most places. But as soon as we come to Setswana, second additional language, all the other learners are at 46%, but this learner is actually doing very well. That might be a clue there. Teaching style and approach that a particular educator is having. Is it possible that we can codify it and try to do what that educator is doing for this learner in other classes? It could be that point. I'm not a education specialist, but I know that different learners have different learning styles. It's possible that maybe a learning style that is employed there is not working for this learner. This is some insights we can get there. Please don't take mine. I trust you as an education official to draw better conclusion than me, a person who works in data. But we also have their combined marks here. And again, we're seeing they're passing in the language front, passing in natural science a little bit better than in the other subjects, but they're failing the rest of the subjects. And that gives us a nice profile of where this educator can be. Also, the attendance of the educator is shown here as well. And as we can see, this educator is a clean slate. So, probably, there's a parent at home who's ensuring that this learner doesn't miss school. Maybe this learner actually does love school, does love coming, but there's some kind of barrier that we need to attend to if this learner is going to move out of being, one of those learners that are chronically progressed. Then if you scroll a little bit further, and again, I will demonstrate all these things in a live session, but we see there's also the achievement section just for this learner. And just think of this as the report card, and it's not going to say anything different from what we saw in the average versus the class. But now we're seeing, previous term performance, and we're seeing that this learner is 2 for 2, not being promoted this term. Then there's also the task achievement section here. And this one just talks about each of the tasks that were performed that this learner was assessed on in each of the subjects. And again, here we're seeing one of the tasks. This learner, performed really, really well for one of the tasks, 70% there. Like I said, if you do my tip that I'm telling you about and just hover over that number, it will give you a better breakdown there of what that task was about. And you can see that it's only labeled as 3. Also in SSMs, it's encouraged that if we have the names of those tasks, that we indicate them there so that they can show up on the dashboard. So if this was the experiment, it would be showing there if it was captured in SSMs. But we can see the weighting and the mark that this learner achieved. Unfortunately, this was captured on time a little bit early too. So I guess it, which is a good thing because it allows us to reassess if maybe too many learners are not doing too well, and we can get down to the bottom of the issue, maybe reassess, do another paper, and see if we can assist those learners. So there's other tasks. As you can see, some of them have 2, but some can have as many as 5. I know languages can have more than that, but here life skills, we're seeing 3 there. What I want you to take away there is that we're actually on the dashboard able to drill down and say, here's the learner's report. What are the tasks that contributed to how that report looks like? And which of the tasks did this learner fail? And which of the tasks did this learner pass? So we can try in some way to get to the bottom of those learning challenges. And that covers the first part that we see at the bottom of the pie charts. And if I was to scroll a little bit beyond the page now that's showing me the learners and the educators, the first thing that I'll see is the grade. And remember, I can also quickly get to this grade by clicking on the pie chart at the top of the page. It will take me to this place. And this is not very difficult to understand. What we're seeing now, as I've explained earlier, the attendance is now split between the learners and the educator. You can see the educator here is in the red, again, indicating some form of missing the threshold or the target. Of the 6 learners that are in the school, only 90, they were present in the school 90% of the time. And if you move a little bit to the right, you see a line there where it would have been not red if they went over that line. And then there's a number at the end of this bar graph representing to us this attendance. And it's saying -9%, which simply means that there was a 9% drop in the attendance compared to the previous term. So our attendance is slacking in all fronts here in this particular school from grade 7, 6, and 5, as far as we can see here. And, we can then start, if we're in a circuit level, we can start doing a drive and target learner absenteeism. Because, of course, if there's no teaching and learning time, there's no learning. So it's a very important indicator for us to make sure it's accurately captured and is properly monitored. If you move a little bit down, then we come to the task marks. And then again, if you click on task marks at the top, it will zoom you and take you right to this page. Notice here on task marks, we can view them either by subject or we can view them by grade, right? If we view them by grade, we'll be able to see what the task coverage is per grade. But I think what's more useful is to ask ourselves which subject is not having enough time to capture the task. Now, again, we don't want to jump to conclusions. It could be possible that that task wasn't captured. It was done, but our capturing process didn't catch it in time. So don't just assume because, for example, isiZulu, first additional language, is having 70%. It wouldn't be the best use of data to go to the school and say, why are you not doing the task? It's first is to understand why the task, in fact, captured, and anything that's around data. I think what we want to do, we don't want to develop a culture of using the data as a weapon because it causes people to fear the data. It causes people to hide the data, and that doesn't help anyone. We want the data to talk to us about where we can support. And so we can see here, isiZulu is needing support because of a 70% task coverage. And if you're using the tip I'm saying, just to hover there, you will see then this pop-up will show up. And this pop-up in this context is telling us exactly which of the subjects, or rather which of the grades participating in the subjects were unable to complete their task. And we can see there across the board from grade 1 to grade 6, below 80% there, with grade 10 at 80%. It's only grade 7, grade 11, and 12 that was able to capture the tasks as we're expecting. And this is key, especially if the term has been finalized. How did we get marks, and how can we rate our learners how can we grade rather our learners if we haven't captured or done the task? So we can find that information out very easy on the dashboard by simply clicking on the task. At this point now, we come to another point of the dashboard, and just like all the others, this is the achievement. If you click on the achievement, it will hurry you down to the achievement. And this one works exactly like the previous one. We can either see the grade, how many learners, the pass rate according to the grades. So we'll see there grade 10 had a 67% pass rate. But we can also look at it from the subjects, and that's the one that I've chosen today. We see here all the subjects and the contribution of that subject to that achievement. And again, very quickly, our eyes are jumping to the reds, and we're seeing where there are issues where we need to support. But there's certain other things that we can take away here just by observing this part. Like, for example, the first one, we notice here that the report mark is 10% outperforming the exam test pass rate. And I think it's a good time to explain there where the exam test pass rate comes from. So the exam pass rate, unfortunately, it's not an automatic process. We are the ones as the school that marks one of the tasks as an exam or a test. In fact, we mark it as a common task or a test. If we do so, then that will show up on the dashboard as an exam or as a test in a non-exam year. Now, I know because of COVID-19, some of our internal assessments are now being taken as exams. So even there, what we want to do, those papers where it's just a learner in the paper, and we are internal papers that we're treating as external papers, we have to properly mark them in SSMs as common tests. If we do that, it will appear here in the way that we've done that mark, right? And as we can see there, in the exam and test pass rate, learners are performing lower. So that means when learners are working in the group, they're doing well. But as soon as they are alone, they're not doing well. So what is the assessment technique we're using? There could be the question. Here we have both the report and the mark looking great. But, when we have all the marks combined, we have 507 learners. But in the exam, we had 511. What is that speaking to? A lot could be going on. The learner could have wrote an exam but left without, doing the other tasks. There's a lot that could have been happening here. But either way, it talks to our data quality. Are we properly archiving learners when they leave? Are we giving transfer letters that are showing that the learner is no longer on our records? This is some of the way that it can reflect on this part. And, here, social sciences across the board, dismal performance. Could this be, again, going back to the learner that I spoke about? Is there a way that we're teaching the subject that is not landing with our learners? And finally, here we've got a report mark that's low, but an exam that's high. We're going to see a lot of that because we are now allowed a little bit to adjust for learners. And I'm not going to go into deep with that. Please look forward to next week's session. We've got a subject matter expert who's going to be talking to us about some of those adjustments and what impact and what connotations they are having on our learners and what we can do about it. But that could be, that's what it could be revealing. So as you can see, although this particular part of the dashboard is speaking about achievement, there's lots of other data that becomes very obvious for us here that would otherwise not be able to be possible if we were just looking at the raw data. It only comes up when we are putting it in a graphic interface. And that, in fact, is the power of the dashboard. And by the way, colleagues, I've been hammering it on, but if I want to highlight on the report mark pass rate, it will pop up, and this pop-up is very, very important because it gives me two insights. Number one, it gives me the level distribution of the learners for the subject or for the grade, depending on what I'm looking at. So let's just say it's for the subject. We can see here, although 68% of the learners did in fact pass, what's the level of their pass? You can see here we have one, we've got a couple in 2%, which is usually a fail for all subjects. We've got some in 11%, which would be a not pass for the language, but a near pass for most of the other subjects. But the bulk of our learners, fortunately for this subject, are performing in level 7, which is a meritorious, above 80%, they're hitting in the A. So this is great for the subject, but we can see the, other learners here, if we combine the learners performing at 4 and 5, we see that that number is slightly more than 7, than the level 7. So that just tells us where our learners are, where they're falling. You can very quickly understand that, okay, for this particular subject, probably, though the 11% here and the 3% here are due for an intervention. Another thing that it shows is the report mark pass rate going back from term 2 of 2017. And we notice here, for some reason, in term 2 of 2018, which is an exam term, there's a almost, I want to almost say 30% dip round about there. And we want to say to ourselves, we want to avoid that happening in term 2. What happened there that caused such a drastic drop in this particular subject? And answers to that will assist us to ensure that that doesn't happen again in this term. Then last, but definitely not least, is finally the promotion piece of this explanation or of the summary. And this one is fairly easy. Basically, it's telling us the percentage of our learners who are promoted, progressed, and not promoted. And you can see here, this blue area is those that were promoted. The reason it's got a different color is because if it was less than that, it would have been red because it's below the threshold. Then we can see the learners who are progressed. Here they are represented here. And then we have those who are not promoted. That's their number there. And then we've got the number here at the corner, like in everywhere, the number in the corner is comparing to the previous term, and it's saying in grade 7, in 2017, the learners performed 2% less compared to the previous term. So there's a small decline there that we're seeing in the promotion statistics. And of course, there would be the metric as well. If you are in a metric, it will probably represent the same thing, but it will speak of different terminology, and that I will explain in our live demonstration. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the data, not very hard to understand once you just break it down, logically. To see, you've got the pie charts. The pie charts are representing what's at the bottom. What's at the bottom, if I click on what's at the bottom, it might take me deeper. If I click on the learner, it takes me to the information about the learner. And also hovering will allow me to gain insight into deeper information. But hopefully I've given you a start now on how to actually advise your own exploration of the dashboard. Unfortunately, what I've done today is maybe 25–50% of the story. What you want to do is log into the dashboard and play around with what I've spoken about, and after some time, you will have your own understanding, and you can use your own insight looking at your own data about what's happening. It will be far more useful than me or Yankee can ever possibly speak to if you look at it yourself. At this point, before I do the live demonstration, Yankee, I do want to take care of some of the questions that have been coming up, so I defer to you while I switch to my browser. Thank you, Yankee.
Thanks, Musa. So far, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by saying that please feel free to engage us on the Q&A option that you are seeing at the bottom there, and then I will gladly attend to all the questions that you are having while we are waiting to get to the end of the session. So in the meantime, we only have one official Jeanette who raised their hand, and then I've advised them that we will attend to them. We'll give her a platform to raise their question towards the end of the session when we get to Q&A, and then we take some of the live questions that our users will be having. So I just want to prepare again, to take this opportunity to prepare again that once we get to the end of the session, the Q&A, I'm going to enable her to unmute her so that she can just raise their question. Thanks, Musa.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Yankee. By the way, could you just confirm for me that you can see my desktop?
100%, I can confirm that I'm seeing your desktop.
Wonderful. Thanks, Yankee. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, this is probably how your desktop would look like. And the first thing you want to do is go to Chrome or to any browser of your choice. but we do recommend Chrome because it just, it's just a little bit more responsive than the dashboard than the other ones. So what I did is I clicked on Windows and I typed Chrome. And as you can see, I land on Google. So here, this is where I put the address for the dashboard. And what I want to advise is do not click here on the search. We go there when we're not sure what we're looking for in researching. In this case, we're very sure. We are looking for the DDD dashboard. And that's the address for the dashboard. It's www.ddedashboard.co.za, and you'll know that you're typing your way into the correct one if you start seeing the education coat of arms. And then I click enter and I land on the dashboard. Let me just move this out the way here. And when I land on the dashboard, let me just stop here long enough to say here in this banner where we are advertising that we're hiring, if you wait for it for a second or two and it moves, one of the things you're also able to do is actually register for these webinars that we're doing. We do these webinars on a weekly basis. And although today we covered a fairly foundation topic, we do often dig deep into analysis and very curriculum-rich subjects we sometimes speak to. We try to strike a balance. And maybe you might be interested in future ones that we have. You are able to actually just register them. I guess it's not paging today because they're maintaining it, but under normal circumstances, you will see it will show us the point where we are able to log in. All right. So, and if you click on login, it then takes you to the landing screen. And if you are here last week, you will remember we spent the entire webinar speaking about how to log into the dashboard. As you can see here, it's musa.similani, capital M, capital S, or exactly the way it came from our DDD dashboard. We put our username, we put our password that we've created. And if we've forgotten our password, if you click on I forgot my username, it will ask you for an email address. This is not just any email address. It's the email address that your access was created with. If you type that there and say send to username, it can happen instantaneously. It might take a minute or two, but a new password will be sent to you, and that you will use now to log in. And then that will now allow you to create a password that you'll remember. And we did say last week that you want to use a password that is hard to remember, but you will be able to remember. So do not use the temporary password as your final password. Sit for a second and think maybe a name of your child, name of your high school, and a significant number. That's the kind of password that I think you will always remember, right? So then you click on log on, but I'm not going to log in directly to the dashboard today because I don't want to see show actual data. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the DDD dashboard, which is the dashboard we use to simulate what the dashboard can do. It looks exactly like the dashboard. The difference is it's not going to show names of provinces because we're national. We don't want to show what's happening in other provinces without express permission. So as you can see here, I'm able to log in from all of the different views that are available there. I'm just going to choose from the school level because, as I've said, this is a level that's available for all of us. And no matter where you are, you should be able to learn how to use the dashboard based on this view. I'm just going to allow my computer to read there and allow me to go in. But you'll notice as soon as I land there, it will look exactly like the page I've been talking about. All right, it took its time, but it's here. And last week I explained the navigational bit. I'm not going to go through that. Please go to YouTube and look at our a webinar from 2 weeks ago if you're not understanding that part, but we covered that. So we're continuing today with the summary. And the first thing we see is the school summary, which is an indication of how complete this data is. Remember, when we're making decisions based on statistics, we don't often have the luxury of having 100% of the data, but we need to decide for ourselves which threshold are we comfortable with. But as you can see, the dashboard has had a suggestion for us here. Yeah, this data is green. Any editing of this data and adding that missing information will not take away too much from the conclusions and the insights we're about to draw. And here are the pie charts. It's the learner attendance, educator attendance, task marks, the promotion, and the learner pass rate that I've been speaking about. But I do want to actually go show you what it would look like if you are in a high school. I'm just going to go back just one and go to a circuit, if it will allow me. So you'll see, yeah, if I'm in a high school or I'm in a level higher than the circuit, you'll see there'll be an extra promotion there that speaks to matric pass rate. So I want it to be there while I'm explaining here. So learner attendance, we spoke about that. And notice when I put my mouse there, it gives us the count of the learners. And it also gives us an indication of how accurate this data is. And then we see something called target there, number 2. Target is at 95%. If this was below 95%, it would have been on the red. And notice, of course, when I click on it, as I've demonstrated, it allows me to go to the attendance. And as you can see there, if I just pick on grade 12, in this particular context, in this circuit, and remember the information would be represented the same even if you're in a school. But in this circuit, 429 learners and a drop of 1% compared to last term in terms of the performance, with the educator having the positive of that. If I put my mouse on that number, notice it gives me the average attendance, which has pretty much stayed the same. But you'll notice there from term 1 of 2020, where it says 20T1 to term 3 of 2020, there's a gap there, there's a dotted line, because we know what happened in 2020. We were very much surprised by the pandemic and we had to close our schools. And, you know, we were just not prepared for it, blindsided by it. And so you, even for years to come, when you go to 2020, we'll see interesting things there as we were trying our best to deal with that. So that's telling me that in 2020, term 1 to term 3, those dashes is just telling me the information was not there, but we know why, right? Educator attendance, if I click on that, it takes me to the same place because here's the educator attendance. Let me go back to the top. Now for the task marks coverage, if I click on the task marks captured, as I've said, I'm either able to see this by grade or I'm able to see this by subject. But be aware that if I actually click on the grade, I am now looking at the dashboard, but for the dashboard for that grade only. So I'm able to make decisions just for that grade by looking at that information. But I'm not going to go too deep about that. Like I said, if you go to a webinar on the dashboard views, you can get that understanding from there. Then we've got the promotion statistics. Oh, by the way, before I go past the task marks, again, if you click it by subject, I can see those subjects that don't have 100% task coverage. And if I am the subject advisor or subject facilitator for, say, Afrikaans home language, if I put my cursor there, I can see for grade R, for some reason, not all of the tasks have been captured. And maybe that is my phase and I can support that. Let me go back right to the top now and speak about the promotion from grade R to grade 11. If I highlight that, one of the more key information or one of the more key pop-ups there, you can see there 75% of the learners were promoted, 15 progressed, 10 did not pass, representing 7,222 learners. This data is 100% complete. And the reason I had to go to a circuit level is because I wanted to actually demonstrate to us what the promotion pass rate looks like. Notice if I highlight that, it now gives me the promotion statistics or the pass rate for matric. 42% of learners in this context had a bachelor degree, 33 had a diploma, 9 had a higher certificate, and 0 had an NSC pass. So that can talk to us about how our matrics did. And of course, 16% had an NSC fail in this context. Then we've got our learner pass rate. In this regard, it's in the red because it's below the threshold of 65%. And I can 100% agree that 65% is not an official pass rate, but of course the dashboard is trying to give a target that is safe, not a target that is correct, and as a result, it's at 65% on the dashboard. It will be in the red with the represented number of 7,849, and of course, if you're in the district level and you want these adjusted for your circuit, that is definitely something that's possible. But I'll talk about how you can contact us for that in a later slide. So I'm just going to click back. So I go back to the school context. Remember, I said the only reason I came out there is just so that we can see the 2020 matric, which is not available in my school that I'm using it as an example here. So let me just dig deep into some of the data now for the promotion and the learner pass rate. If I click on the promotion, you'll see there it'll have the promotion for the entire grade. And just like I said, if I just put my mouse there, I can see promoted learners at 88%, represented by the blue and the dark blue. This line represents a line. If we drop below, this would have been in the red. And the target was 65%, with learners being progressed being in 4%. This is for grade 7. But we can see grade 4, a significant dip in the promotion. We are losing a lot of learners in grade 4. And it's even worse than the previous year by 12%. So just by scrolling, I'm already seeing that grade 4 is due for some form of support. And maybe you have theories as to why that's happening. Of course, this is when learners are switching a phase. And often one of the patterns we're seeing is as soon as learners switch a phase, there is that drop. Maybe we can figure out what's the cause for that and make it a matter of intervention. That's the power of the data to give us that picture. And then finally, we've got the learner pass rate. And as I've said, I can either see it by grade. We've got the learner pass rate, the report pass rate compared to the common test in this term. So the dashboard is updated, so it knows that term 1, it will be the common test. But if I go to a term with if I go to the term with an exam, it will change to exam. Just a small change that we've updated on the dashboard. And of course, we will have a webinar that talks about those. And as I've said, you can also view this information using the grade. And if you were to just put your mouse there and highlight the grade, you can see there that achievement that I was talking about. And then it becomes different as well for the common test. And also here on this side with the learner pass rate, if I put that there, we also see a different one where we've got a medium or a baseline, but we are seeing we've dropped from 92% learner pass rate to 72% between term 4 and term 1. We are losing the ground we've made in grade 7. Now, there's a lot I could have spoken to here, but because of time, I'm going to stop there. There will definitely be more sessions that we're going to talk about what we are seeing here on the dashboard. But until then, I just want to remind us again, colleagues, notice here in the blue area that we described in the previous webinar, there's a question mark. If you click that question mark, give yourself time, you'll be able to actually read some of the help topics we have there. And they're very quite enjoyable, I have to say. But in the end, they'll give you a nice picture of your data that you're viewing on the dashboard, allowing you to make the most of the time by focusing just where your support is most needed, especially in the reduced teaching time because of COVID-19. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think I will hand over now to Yankee for us to have a look at some of the questions that came up while I was demonstrating. Yankee?
Thanks, Mr. Similan. I think the first thing that I would like to mention is that we received a question from one of our officials, Ricky Ilof, where they were requesting for the YouTube link so that they can visit, that they can go there and watch the previous webinars. So I'm going to paste the YouTube, our YouTube channel link on the chat for all the colleagues to just save it, to make it easy for them maybe to just visit it whenever they feel like maybe if it happened that they missed any of our webinars. So that's number one. Then coming to the questions here, we have a question from, I'm going to start with the one that comes from Lungisi. And then the question is that if task marks are not captured by educators, how accurate are the learner scorecard at the end of the term or at the end of the year? If task marks are not all captured by the educators, how accurate are the learner scores, learner scorecard at the end of the question, at the end of the term or year? You got that question? You're okay with it?
Yes, I got it, Yankee. And I would appreciate it if you could also weigh in here. Remember, Mlungisa, I did say that it doesn't represent that it wasn't done. The best representation is that it didn't make its way to SASMs. More often than not, these tasks have been captured. Sorry, they've been performed by the educator. but they haven't been captured in our system on SESAT. So that's also a possibility. And as far as accuracy of the data, the dashboard can make us ask questions to go back to see if in fact things are going the way they happen. This is the monitoring that we are doing in the school that the dashboard is assisting with. Yankee, would you like to weigh in on this one as well, please?
No, I think you have covered it, Musa. What is important is that there, it might speak to maybe if an expectation is that maybe at the end of the term for task 8, there needs to be like for a school 1,800 results or records, and then it's only 1,800 is missing. So it could be there that maybe some of the information is not captured. So it speaks to many aspects of the data, which requires now, if you're an official, you can easily make a follow-up with the subject teacher because it will tell you exactly which subject it is. And then you can just maybe communicate with the teacher as to find out maybe why is the task marks for term 2 not done at 100%, and then that will be the good person to give you more insights. So for the data is just to show you that, you know, please note that for this particular subject, for term 2, only 80% or 90% of tasks were captured, not 100%. And then, you know, as a principal, as an official, it needs to be 100%. So the first thing is to make sure, is to investigate which subject, and then from there you will know exactly who to speak to, and then from there you'll get more accurate answers from those officials or from the educator at the school. Yeah. Thanks, Musa. And then I think the second question there is from Macy Ngenchani. And then the question is, will it be possible for district officials to see names of educators to view questions? Okay. I'll allow you to answer that one, Musa.
Thanks, Yankee. The simple answer is yes, but because of POPI Act that we've been complying with even before, you know, we've been complying it for years, even before it became popular this year. As a result of that, we following it, we don't always allow those who don't know the names of the learners to see them. So if you're at a circuit level and above, you probably don't see them, but a request can be motivated. And if you can just contact our help desk, and we will be sharing that information, and they will be able to better guide you on that process. We don't have the scope to explain it here, but please contact our help desk. So number one, we document your request, and we can monitor the assistance we give to you. Also, your district official or MS official or DISM in Gauteng is also the best place to go there. But I think, Yankee, your way in as someone who's in the province might also assist my answer.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Musa. I think actually maybe the first approach to it is that for the officials maybe to reach out to their, let's say you are a CES, just have to reach to your chief, to your CES, and then tell them that, okay, because of I engage with the educators, and then in order for me to be able to support them, I need to have access to their names. And then you first have to write motivation, and then from that motivation, your senior or your manager needs to approve it. And then from there, it can be then escalated to your MEs or IT official who will then give you who will give you access to the personal information. For now, it's just hidden because to comply with POPIA. But once you provide motivation and then your manager approves that motivation, you just have to go to your system administrator in your province, and then they will provide you with the access. It doesn't take long. Yeah. And then I think I see that we are 4 minutes above over, but I would just like us to take these questions from Aluwani, and then we also have Jeanette Koba who raised their hand. So Jeanette, we're going to attempt to answer this question, and from there I'm going to give you an opportunity to raise your question. And thanks, Musa, for launching the polls. Thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, I see my colleague has just launched the polls. If you can just interact with them to give us feedback on how the session was, so that we can better meet your expectation on the next coming sessions. So the last question that I want us to take is from Aluwani Godfrey. The question is a very good presentation. My challenge is one, inconsistent provision of data by schools especially the administration and validation of SASM's 12.3.11. And then the second question goes to say, number 2, no relation with regards to how we report per term and how SBA is accumulated per term, i.e. term reporting weight versus the SBA reporting accumulation, e.g. a learner with a test or exam mark of 75% and reporting mark is 40%. Quite confusing in terms of taking a support decision. So term reporting weight A is the combination of, okay. I think I'm not sure if I'm understanding the two questions that Aluani is asking Musa. Please feel free if you do. Otherwise, I think we can just allow her an opportunity maybe to ask her this question live.
Because of time, Yankin, we already have someone on the line. I think I would welcome clarification, but what I'm understanding is that they're saying the SBA count versus the exam count is confusing. Which one do we support? And I think the simple answer to that, ladies and gentlemen, is we support the mark that is on the report. And then we try to investigate what was the cause of that. If it was the exam, we go to that. If it was any of the other tasks, we go to that. I think that will be the simplest answer I can give as a non-official. But Godfrey, if I'm not assisting you, please be here next week. Someone who is in a better position to speak to these matters will be here. And I wonder if you are here, Trishan, but I'll be sure to try and remember this question so that we also take care of it. But we're having a colleague in the department who's going to speak to us with some authority on some of the curriculum issues that we can come across. And I think this is one of them. I don't think any answer Yankee and I will give will be satisfying. And so hence we are having them next week. So please don't miss next week's webinar, ladies and gentlemen. Come with your questions like this, and we're going to have answers straight from the horse's mouth, no disrespect. So Yankee, we have Janet. Has she connected? Can we have her question?
Yes, she is connected. Jeanette, you can just ask your question before we close the session quickly.
Okay, because of time, I unfortunately have to forgive us there, Janet, but please feel free to shoot your question to us. The polls are at 57%, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are engaging with them. If you're not seeing them, if you're on a laptop, move your mouse. The Zoom bar will appear, click on polls and engage with it. It's very important that we gain your feedback. If you're on the phone, the 3 dots, if you click on those, if you're not already seeing polls, you'll see it there. But I think with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me close the session. Apologies for having gone over time. I really hope it was of value to you. I want to thank my colleague, as usual, Yankee, for his exceptional support. Nothing else to say, but thank you for coming to the session. Hope it was valuable, and we will see you in the next one, and have yourself a wonderful weekend. Yankee, your goodbyes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for making time to join us join us today. Please do enjoy your weekend. Stay safe and keep warm. It's very, very cold. Hope to see you again in our next webinars next week. Cheers.
Cheers.